Hey there, my name is Chris Acton with Acting Creative, and this is a handwoven interview. In today's interview, I'm going to be talking to the fabulous Rebecca Riley-Vargas. Rebecca is the owner of Three Moons Fiberworks, which is a weaving store right here in my town of Chesterton, Indiana. And Rebecca is such an interesting person. I think you're really going to love this interview. So enjoy a handwoven interview with Rebecca Riley-Vargas. Well, welcome, Rebecca. I'm so glad you're here. So we'll just dive right in, shall we? Uh,
Absolutely.
so um, Walk us through kind of how you got into weaving. I always feel like weaving is such a odd craft. It's a unique craft to get into. So what were the sequence of events that brought you to becoming a weaver?
So I actually found an old loom for sale first
Oh,
and
nice.
decided to dive in and give it a shot. We rehabbed the loom and in so doing taught myself how the loom mechanics work.
Nice.
And then afterwards decided to try out weaving. Not at all convinced that I was going to like it.
Oh,
So I was a little surprised to find that I was fascinated by every step of the process
hmm.
and absolutely fell in love with the art form.
Okay. But not every day does someone find a loom and say, it's a good idea. I should rehab this. So, had you rehabbed other things? What were you just an adventurous girl? How'd you start out there?
A friend sent me a link to a loom on Craigslist. The price was very good,
Yep.
mostly because the owner of the loom needed it out of the house.
Nice.
And so I had another friend willing to pick it up. It was just north of Indianapolis. Um, and we went from there.
There we go. Yeah. And hadn't you done some like historical reenactment? Wasn't that part of your background that led into that?
Absolutely. So I've been a member of the Society for Creative Anachronism, which is a recreation based society from the fall of the Roman Empire through to the 1600s. And
Oh,
in taking a look at, historical garment recreation,
mhm.
weaving is definitely a part of it. So
Yeah.
it had been on my list to potentially try, and then when the loom came up, that's that's what prompted it.
It was a sign. You were
Exactly.
meant to be a weaver for sure. Okay, but certainly then you didn't stop with just one loom, is my understanding.
Correct. Within short order, we had about 5 looms in the house. um
Nice.
Perhaps the most entertaining story was I saw an ad on Craigslist that showed a single picture, which was a cardboard box of about yay big that had a shuttle on top. It was the only thing you could clearly identify. And the Craigslist ad had said free, first come, first serve. And I was like, well, wooden shuttles are not necessarily inexpensive, right? Like it's
Right?
worthwhile trying to see if we can pick it up. So
Yeah.
I called my brother and asked him if he'd be willing to swing by the address because it was in Chicago.
Mhm.
And he specifically asked me, how big is this box? Do I need to take a different vehicle? Because he had a sedan at the time. I said, no, it's just a box. It's fine.
Right.
So he went to go pick up the box, and a few hours had gone by, and I'm starting to get worried that I haven't heard from him. So I text him and ask if everything is okay. And what I get back are pictures of his car absolutely filled to the brim with wooden pieces and his
What?
poor dog sitting on top of the pile, right? And I was so confused. I'm like, I don't understand. It was a box.
Right.
So he wrote me back. He's like, no, it was all of these pieces, and I didn't know what to take and what not. So we took everything. It was an entire loom. It was a 60-inch wide, four
What?
shaft jack loom. and every piece was there. So,
Okay,
right.
what are the odds of that, honestly,
I have
have all the pieces there?
correct, exactly. And so that was the second loom in the house, and they just kept accumulating from there.
It's like while you're not looking, they like multiply like
Yes,
bunnies. It's just yeah.
exactly.
I can understand that. Okay, so you've tried out weaving, you love it, you're going along, you're buying all the looms, all of them have a home with you. So how did the idea for a store come about then?
Honestly, it wasn't in my mind at all until I walked into our current building. The building needed a tremendous amount of rehab work, and my husband and friend were working on it. I met them for lunch one day, walked into the building, and my very first thought was this would make a spectacular studio. And
Wow.
it really had inspired me to the extent that I went back home after lunch and started working on the business plan. And
Wow.
it took us a bit to find a plan that we thought would work.
Mhm.
And then it took us even longer to continue the rehab on the building. But it not knock on wood, we've been able to make it happen.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. And for anyone who follows Acting Creative, I have a whole video, it does a little tour of Three Moons Fiberworks, so you can certainly see it there. You've done such a beautiful job with it though too. I mean, it is a glorious space. It is, if you love
Thank
fiber
you.
at all, it is a little slice of heaven, that is for sure. So so what has been some of your surprises with owning a weaving store?
Oh goodness. Um,
A lot of them, I'm guessing.
yeah.
I'm guessing it's quite a learning experience. Yes.
So, when we work with students, one of the wonderful things are the students come up with ideas I never would have contemplated. That being said, we have a good number of floor looms in here, in the ballpark of 30, and they're all a little bit different. So sometimes we run into problems with the floor looms that I could not personally have predicted.
Right. You don't see it coming.
Right, exactly. So that's, we joke that it's going to be one of those days when the statement, well, I've never seen that before, comes out of their mouth. Right. But, we learn on the fly and we problem solve and figure things out. And thankfully, we have the most patient students. And so I only think we've ever had one catastrophe where we
Oh
couldn't
no.
solve it.
Where there was no saving it, huh? There was
Yeah, that one.
It was,
But everything else we've been able to sort out and keep
yeah.
going.
Yeah. That's amazing. Well, and I think what viewers will be interested to know is that at any point you can walk into Three Moons and you can sit down and weave. Like, she has projects that are ready to go. You can be like, I'm going to come in and make a skirt, and voila, that day you can sit down and do it. And then she always has long-term projects going. So there's at any given point, there's folks working on a variety of projects. It's always fun to walk around and just see what everyone's doing.
Yes. And the wide variety, that's what's most fun with the students, I think, is just seeing projects that I never would have, been drawn to myself. And it's great fun to see what folks come up with.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yes. So what's your kind of vision for Three Moons? I know for so long it's been like, make it through the pandemic. We can do it. We can hang on. Because, first of all, people should know that retail is not Rebecca's. That's not, she's a lawyer by trade.
Yes.
So this is not. So this is a whole different career for you. So where would you like it to go?
So in my perfect world, what we would be is a resource center for weavers in the Midwest, both from a supply standpoint and from a learning standpoint. And one of the things that I really love is being a hub for different types of fiber artists in the area.
Mhm.
So we have folks that sell fiber here that is picked up by folks that want to spin yarn, that they then bring in their finished skeins, and they are picked up by folks that want to weave with it. And so we serve as a hub for a whole bunch of different fiber arts and allow for communication between them, which is just wonderful to see happening.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. I think, and you said it so well, because when you walk in, yes, you see a whole sea of looms, but she has a whole station for dyeing, and she has spinning wheels everywhere. And there's just, no matter what part of the process you want to kind of jump into, there are things accessible there. Well, and Rebecca has kind of put together this little, we have this little posse that meets a couple times a month, and it includes someone who's a dyer and someone who's a spinner, and then myself. And so it's always so fun for us to kind of put our heads together and kind of brainstorm what could be next and how could we help service all those fiber lovers out there.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I mean, we keep finding new and different things, to explore. Our first weaving retreat is coming up in March. And so
Woo!
that is very exciting for us.
Yeah, that's gonna be amazing.
And we've actually been contacted by two different instructors in the last week asking if they can teach classes. So we're hoping to continue to build out a very cool roster moving forward.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. Yes. And then at the end we'll talk about how to reach out to you, but there's Rebecca always has a great lineup of classes that you can look at. And some really interesting thing. I love the fact that you just offered some embroidery, which
Yeah.
I think is awesome. Like, just that it's not just in that one vein, that you're trying out all kinds of other fiber related classes.
The embroidery classes have actually been remarkably successful, and so we're going to continue with those too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I feel like every time I come in, there's a felting something going on. I feel like there's a certain there's a lot of felting happening there, which is awesome. I'm all for it. We should have more felting in our lives for sure. So that is awesome. Okay, so one of the things that I want to do as part of a handwoven interview is to have my guests offer us some kind of a tip. So as I was thinking about Rebecca, I was like, oh, I know the tip that I want her to offer, because when you walk into Three Moons, of course, she has, a whole sea of looms that are different stages, if someone's weaving on them or it's being dressed or whatever it is. So one of the things that Rebecca does, I think, is brilliant, is that she will, as she finishes up one project, she'll tie on another one directly to it. So I wanted her to kind of walk us through what that looks like.
Absolutely. So it is a technique that saves me hours of time, and we use it a whole lot. If you have a warp on that has the same pattern through your heddles that you want to use again, then you can tie on a new warp. It works whether you are used to front to back warping or back to front warping.
Yeah, either way, that's awesome.
You need to leave enough warp on that you can go ahead and tie a knot, which means usually 6 inches either in front of the reed or 6 inches behind the heddles, depending upon what direction you are coming from. If you are warping front to back, then you wind your new warp and go ahead. We attach it to the front beam of the loom and pull directly from your cross and just tie knots across your reed. Then you can carefully move those knots through your reed. They will go through even a 15 dent reed. We've done it before.
You've tested this, right? Because that's the thing that I always wonder. I'm like, okay, do the knots, is it tricky to get them through the reed and the heddles? And you only have to do it once, so that's good. You don't have to.
Right. It's not tricky. If you have a very densely spaced warp, the worst we came across was we had a warp faced double weave project.
Ooh, so, that's a lot.
Right. We had 5 ends per dent on that project. And so that we had to move real slowly. We did
Yeah.
it, but once you get your knots tied, you go ahead and just wiggle them through the reed, and
Right.
we're talking half an inch at a time on that project. And then once they're through the reed, you do the same thing, pull them through the heddles. Once the knots are through the heddles, you've got two options. You can just keep winding on if you want,
Okay.
or I usually go ahead and cut off the old warp at that time and reattach the new warp directly to whatever I have on my back beam.
Gotcha.
Whether it's a bar or lark's head knots, or whatever the case may be. And the reason why, if I've got the time, I do that is because depending upon your floor loom, as the knots come over the back beam, you can have some trouble with them splitting at that point in time. So towards the very end of your warp, if you've got a floor loom with a lot of tension, then you might start to see trouble. So if you just attach the new warp directly to your apron or whatever you're working with there, you eliminate that problem.
Nice. Very cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I love how he explains that. As a matter of fact, Rebecca took it one step further, and she has a video for us to see the actual knot and kind of how it all comes together. So check that out.
The blue is from my old warp. I have a loop from the end I'm tying onto. The black is the new warp. I'm going to take the end through the center of the loop, around behind the loop, and then underneath the black. When I am done, this is what a tied-on warp will look like. So each end of the new black warp has been tied onto the blue warp.
Okay, so let's do some rapid fire questions. Are you game?
No.
Nice. I didn't expect you to say that. Okay, all right. Let's do it anyways. All right, here we go. What is your favorite fiber?
Wool.
Oh, nice. Do you have a specific kind of wool, or just wool in general, just across the board?
To spin myself is the long wools. To work with, as far as like against skin, is probably merino.
Ooh, yeah. Ooh, good answer. Nice. Okay, of your sea of looms, do you have a favorite? And if so, what is it?
I do. The very first loom that I went ahead and rehabbed, there's one, just the appreciation for it, because we put all the work into it, and it is what I learned on. Second, because it has a ruler stamped into the shuttle race.
What?
With 0 starting in the very center and the numbers increasing from either side. And that's the first loom I learned on. So when I realized that not all looms had
that wasn't normal.
Right. I was very disappointed. But it is the most useful thing that I have come across in a long time.
That's brilliant. And is the loom at Three Moons, or is it at your house?
Nope, it's here at Three Moons.
It's here. Nice. Ooh, we'll have to go check it out. Okay, for you, back to front or front to back? I know you know both, but do you have a preference?
Front to back.
Okay, excellent. All right. When you have questions, what is your go-to weaving resource?
Ooh,
do you have a book?
Do
you have a website? Do you have
So if I have several different books here in the studio that I will grab depending upon what type of information I need.
Yep.
But if I am stumped on sort of a real world practical type of question, then I tend to go to the large Facebook groups that focus on weaving, because it has never failed me. If I post a question there, I usually wind up with a useful answer.
Nice. Oh, that's a good answer. I tend to always think about, books and that kind of thing, but I love that you have this community just waiting to help you. Yeah, I love that. Good answer. Okay, last question. Why is weaving good for you?
Oh, for me personally, because it engages both the analytical and the creative side of my brain. And the actual act of weaving is the equivalent of a meditation period for me.
Ooh.
So.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, excellent. And what would you say for someone else if they asked you? You said for you personally, what generally, what would you say is why is weaving good for you?
I think amongst the different fiber arts, weaving is one that if you're talking about only sitting down at the loom and working on it, you have instant gratification. You get to see those patterns and colors interact right in front of your eyes, which tends to motivate folks to keep going because, well, what happens if I try this, right? And they get to see right away.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. Good answer. Very nice. Okay. And then lastly, of course, but not least, how can people find you?
We are online at threemoonsfiberworks.com. We're on Facebook and Instagram as well. And we are in downtown Chesterton at the corner of 4th and Broadway.
Woohoo! And by the way, for those who don't know Chesterton, it is small enough. And
Yes.
When we say 4th and Broadway, you can't miss it. It is
Right.
It is right there, friends. It is it's in the old post office / antique store / this building that she's in has had a million different lives. So it is yeah, it's very cool.
Yep.
What's the list up to? We have it was how many things in what
that folks think that we may be?
Yes, yeah.
Oh gosh, I would have to double check, but we're getting into the double digits. So we get asked if we are the post office, which makes some sense because the building was the post office before 1994. We get asked,
like that was just yesterday, like that 1994. That's yeah.
We get asked if we were an antique store, which again makes vague sense because it was for a short stint in there. We get asked if we are a library. We have also heard paint store, cabinet store, furniture store. What are some of the other fun ones? Fireworks. We've had that one. You're right. Well, folks misread our name instead of fiber.
Fiber, fire. Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay. I can see that now. I'm like, okay, well, how did we get that? Yeah. Well, and what people should know is that when you come up, it used to be they had these like there's a whole wall of windows. And it used to be the bottom half was all kind of a solid blue, and Rebecca took those out, so it's all glass. So all you see is like sea of looms. So it's kind of obvious that it's not a paint store or or a fireworks place. I would think it's obvious. I would think
candle store. We've had that one too.
Oh, candles. Okay. Well, certainly, no matter what kind of place you think it is, everyone should definitely take a trip and come to Three Moons Fiberworks because it'll be very much worth your the time and effort to get there because it's amazing. And we are very, very lucky to have you here in Chesterton. So thank you.
And we would love everyone to come visit.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much for spending a few minutes with me today. I love this interview. It was so fun to kind of hear about your background and talk about all the cool things happening at Three Moons.
For certain.
Okay. How great is she? Wasn't that fun? I just adore her. And what she's built in Three Moons Fiberworks is amazing. It's very, very impressive. If you live anywhere close, just come see it. You won't have any regrets. It's just a fiber wonderland for sure. So, and I love in the interview, her tip was fabulous, wasn't it? Because I don't do that, I'm always curious to find out how other fiber artists tackle certain parts of the process. And that was so fun to see how she just connects one project to the next and rolls it right through and saves you all that time dressing another loom, or dressing a loom again, I should say. So I hope that was helpful and really got you thinking about how to link one project to another. So I hope you loved this interview as much as I did. Stay tuned. There will be many more fabulous handwoven interviews to come. Have a great week, my friend. Happy weaving.